Well, how we will do this is a little bit different than other panels that you might have seen. Instead of going from country to country presenting what each country is doing, we have divided this panel into 3 sub-segments. One that we will talk about exports from Latin America, from an aggregated point of view, and also from an individual point of view of each one of these countries. Second, we will see what are the main retail chains that could be affecting or that are affecting Latin American exports. And finally, we will see China and what is the effect that China and Asia is having on exports from Latin America. But I would like to start first asking each one of the members of this panel to introduce themselves and to share a little bit of the vision of what is happening in each one of these countries. Conrado, please.
Hello, I'm working here in New York for the Trade Commission of Peru. In Peru, we have been developing different products. We export like $8 billion in food products. In produce, it's like $3 billion, mostly to the US, but not only. We have a big market in Europe and also in China and other countries. We have been negotiating free trade agreements since the 90s. And we recently get access for more fresh products here to the US, like avocados and grapes, and more recently, peppers and pomegranate and figs and different products. And we are also working in those accesses all over the world, and now we have very important success cases in China.
Well, my name is Maykool Lopez. I'm the Trade Commissioner and Director of the Export Promotion Agency of Costa Rica, PROCOMER. Our office in New York have like around 80 years, and we have 2 offices in the United States, one in Miami and one in New York. United States definitely is our main market to export. 40% of our products come to the US. We have approximately 4,000 products exported to the world to 155 different destinations. We're still working on diversification of our market, but also diversification of our products. The produce industry definitely it's one of the most important and experienced industries that we've been working with, and that we wanted to keep working on developing access around the world. Among the main products that I'm very positive everybody knows from Costa Rica, definitely bananas and pineapples. But more recently, in the past 15 years, we have experienced a good growth on nostalgic markets with products like the tropical category, mainly the yucca roots, all those roots and tubers related with the Hispanic community.
Hi, my name is Karina. Can you hear me? Yes. My name is Karina Amaluisa, and I'm the Trade Commissioner of Ecuador in New York. I'm also the Director of Pro Ecuador, which is the Institute for the Export and Investment Promotion for Ecuador. And I've been living here in New York for about 8 years, and very happy to promote what we have as a produce exporter country. For us, US represents our main export market, especially for the produce, is about the 27%. And we traditionally have a very good relationship for not only for the trade, but also the political side. And I would say that for us, the produce sector is the most important for exports, and not only for US, but also for worldwide. I don't know if you are familiar about where it's located, Ecuador, but even we have a small country, geographically speaking. We are located in the middle of the world, and we have the direct sunlight all over the year, so we don't have seasonality is a minimum. So that also makes us to produce and offer the produce from our country, it has a lot of colors, flavors, and also textures. And we are exporting to U.S. more than 79 different fruits, and we are very strong on the bananas and plantains and mangoes mainly. And we compete very close with my colleagues, representative countries, but we are also think that there is an important market share still in this U.S. market. We are growing so fast also with other countries, especially from the European Union, which we already signed an agreement, trade agreement with them, and it's going to start on the next year. So there are a lot of potential also to continue growing for the produce industry in Ecuador.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Diego Diaz. I work as Trade Commissioner of Guatemala in New York. I've been living here for almost 6 years. Guatemala, it's a mainly agricultural country. We have an agricultural sector that exports about $2 billion, being the United States the main market. If we talk about fruits, we send about 80% of our offer to the US, 16 to Europe, and 4 between Central America. I believe that it's one of the most important sectors for us, not only because it brings money to the country, but also because we had a conflict for more than 36 years. So the government has made a lot of efforts in order to diversify and to harvest more products in order to employ all the different people that were, in the rural areas somehow involved in this, and make them productively economically. So we are leaders in some products, such as snow peas, that we call it the peace product, because that's one of the products that we have made more efforts in order to employ people. It brings more than 100,000 employees in the country. And we are big also in some fruits, such as plantains, bananas, melons, some citrus, and berries all year round, like blackberry and strawberry. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mildred Ruiz. I'm Trade Commissioner for Mexico. We cover out of New York, the whole area that goes from Connecticut all the way to Pennsylvania, mainly helping American businesses get direct contact with producers in Mexico. Mexico, it's a very open economy. We have signed trade agreements with 46 countries, and that gives us access to over 1,200 million people all throughout the world. The United States, it's by far our main export consumer and partner. 80% of our exports come here to the United States. And just to give you an example of how open the Mexican economy is and how NAFTA has helped our country and American consumers get cheaper products, I can tell you that just a year after NAFTA was signed in 1995, exports from Mexico in the produce sector to the United States increased by 50%, and by 2011, 80 to 90% of our exports came here. Now, how big is this sector? It's very big. For Mexico, about $30 billion are exported in this sector worldwide. And as you all know, we're leaders in many of the agricultural products that we export. One of them is avocados, and the other one is tomato. And I think we can talk about any more products where we are leaders around the world. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, like I just said, we will see one of the first sub-segments of this panel, and it will be analyzing the exports from Latin America. So just to give a context, this is the evolution of world exports of fruit, okay? And as you can see, the growth in the last 50-something years has been tremendous, both on Mediterranean and also on, Mediterranean and tropical fruits. And in this context, Latin America accounts for 32% of the global exports of fruits. I'm going to be focusing mainly on fruits, not because I don't like vegetables, like Jim was saying, although I do have a challenge with broccoli, but that's a personal thing. But because it's from Latin America, 82% of the export of vegetables come from Mexico. So it makes it more comparable if we just talk about fruits from all the countries. So that being said, this is the evolution of exports to the world of fruits from Latin America. And the growth, as if you have seen, is close to 20%. We're growing in average 3% as a whole continent in export to the world. If we see this in terms of dollars, it's close to 40%. So it's interesting to see that we're growing more on the dollar side than on the volume side. And if we see the export by the different countries, you see that there are notable differences there. It's interesting to see, I don't know if everybody can see it there, the growth from Mexico in exports, to the world, and we will see in a second also how we grow to the US. The exports to the US have grown in this amount. Sorry, it's a little distant to see here, but it's 25% in growth from Latin America to the US in tons. And if we see this in dollars, it's also an important growth in the last 6 years. Now, if we analyze the exports from Latin America of fruits to the US particularly, we see that the biggest growth there is Mexico. So the other countries are either stagnated or haven't grown that much in the last 6 years. So my first question to the panel will be, what has happened, or what could we be doing in order to increase the exports from Latin America to the US? I start with anyone in the panel that would like. Diego?
Well, I would like to address my point of view of what I believe has been happening with Guatemala. There has been certain factors that have affected our trade with the US. One is that we signed the association agreement with Europe, so our producers are not only focusing their efforts in order to export to the US, but also to export to Europe. And this, you can see it in the statistics that it has been the case. Also is that we have a problem, I would say, with our logistics. We need to improve them and to make them more competitive. Most of our exports they come to Miami, and even though you will find product from Guatemala all over the country, and in Canada, most of them they're being sold to Miami and then get it inland to the rest of the country. We have been making efforts, and one of the efforts we have made an alliance with Whole Logistics that Sander Daniel is around there, in order to try to promote our exports to come directly more to the north. So we are lobbying in order to have more options for logistics, and I believe that with that we will be able to bring more to the US and to Canada.
Well, we certainly have a very steady growth in the past 5 years. The good thing is, well, the volume and the value of the produce industry is still there. This is a $2.5 billion business for Costa Rica. mainly the second export, the second industry or sector that we export to the U.S. and to the world. We do believe that the produce industry it's important and had been important in the past years, but we do believe as well that adding value to the products, it's where we can differentiate and we can actually try to find some other niche markets for our companies. Having said that, so I have to add that we as a country have been investing a lot in technology and a lot of on compliance with certifications and trying to add a little bit of that extra component to the products. Either processes like IQF or processes like the heat treating or reformulating the product and converting that product into something else. That definitely it's an important component for us to do not increase the rate as other countries itself. We also believe that there is a market that we have, a market cap that we can get, and we have to still working on promoting some others avenues, meaning others channels to get the product, and that actually is perhaps something that we probably will talk further along of this panel, but I believe that that's a challenge we have to face at this point, trying to diversify the channel in order to get to different access, different markets for our products. I mean, when we spoke about fruits, we have to mention definitely pineapples and bananas as our main drivers to generate business in the country. However, we've done a very good job on seasonal products like melon, for example, and mangoes as well. And most lately on exotic products. I have to be honest, as well as Diego mentioned, a big chunk of the market actually it's the US, which represents pretty much 49% average in the last 10 years, last decade. But European Union it's actually the supplement of that pie, and keep working on developing other markets like Asia or mainly the Asian markets where we actually can get some sort of better margins as well.
I shouldn't say this, but I see that Mexico is the problem here. Even they had to do a special scale where Peru doesn't appear because Mexico is so big.
We can change the scale. That's a good point.
Maybe I increase 100%, right? Because from almost nothing to almost Ecuador or Costa Rica,
right.
I'm there. I agree. I'm a late beginner. Peru is a metal country. We have been exporting different things. In the fresh, we are just starting. And that is why we are growing so fast, though Mexico is getting also the asparagus. We were the first producers and importers of asparagus to the U.S.
And now we're number one.
And now Mexico.
This is going to get nasty because Chile used to be the number one before Peru, and then so this is very interesting to see the dynamic.
We are competing inside the Latin countries. Chile started many products. Peru then say, oh, there's an opportunity there, and they started. And Mexico says, oh, they are buying asparagus now. Let's Peru.
Okay, so, and let me add something. If you that starts in 2010. If you start in 1995, the curve would be steeper. It would be much bigger. Why? Because we signed NAFTA in 1994. And let me just give you an example with tomatoes. In 1995, we exported 700,000 tons of tomatoes to the United States. In 2015, it was 1.5 tons, so we doubled the amount. And that can be the case in other fruits or vegetables. Now let me tell you, and let me address some of the points that my colleagues here talked about. If we talk about logistics, yes, we handle very well logistics. If you buy avocados, if you buy tomato, if you buy anything, any fruit or vegetable, within 4 days, you will have your product here. And you will pay no tariff.
Anywhere in the U.S.
In the U.S. 3 or 4 days, depending on where you are. And you will pay no tariffs. It will come, you will not, and that's an important issue. We have the logistics well handled. We just opened a direct route from Pennsylvania to Veracruz, one of the biggest ports in Mexico. Trucks, they come here every day. They cross the border every day. Technology. Mexicans have grown. Young people now have learned to work and to comply with U.S. requirements. If you take a 20-year-old, he grew up with NAFTA. We do know how to make business with the U.S. We do know how to comply with U.S. requirements. Most of these people speak English, and they can negotiate in English terms with American people. And if not, call us, and we're there to help you. So I think that's it. We're close by. We have the logistics well managed. We have NAFTA, and also we teach our people, as my colleague from Costa Rica was saying, we use technology, and these people now are learning how to comply, how to make tomatoes out of a vine and do not touch the ground, and all of these beautiful products that you get here are produced in Mexico with high technology. So,
Mildred, I have a friend that works in the stock market, so my question to him would be very obvious. If you see that chart, and I would ask him, would that stock would go down? He would say, absolutely not. But how do you see the future? Do you think you can continue growing Mexico in the same rate that has had going back before NAFTA, that even steeper curve that you mentioned?
That's what we're doing in Mexico. We believe that we're an integrated economy with the United States, and we talk about other, I mean, we're not talking about manufacturing or other sectors, but we are very well integrated, a very well integrated economy. Yes, I will. That's what we are working towards.
Let me say something, or to share something about the Ecuadorian economy and experience, because I would say this is the only one country that, from my colleagues, we don't have a free trade agreement, so we have to fight hard for this market, for the market share of this market, but still we're growing steadily and constantly. And one of the reasons why is because of the recognition of the quality of our products. And also, I would say that another strength that we have is from our law. We have the ban, or is prohibited, the GMO production, and we have also avoid completely the child labor on our produce farmers. So we have a lot of added value comparing with the comparative advantages that I mentioned on the beginning of my presentation. Because even we have a very strategic location in the middle of the world, we don't have seasonality, we have high quality, we have standards, international standards. And that I would say that's the reason why we can be continuously growing. And also even we rank like 17th position on the ranking as a supplier of fresh vegetables and fruits to the US. And it's a small amount because obviously Mexico has taken a very big part of the pie. And even though we are in the 17th rank, it represents only 1.4% of the market share. But as I said, we think even we don't have this, we have another challenge for us. Is even we don't have a free trade agreement, even we have the US dollars is our official currency. Since that, we cannot be devaluating our currency to compete better in the prices. So definitely we have to find other ways to compete and very consistently, that as I mentioned, that is high quality. Organic products are always also very well recognized. And we are trying to put apart the price thing as the priority for the consumer making the decision to buy.
You stole my question, Karina. Very good. So you definitely have an additional challenge on the other Latin American countries because the rest is benefiting right now with a stronger dollar while you're not. That brings me to ask to all the members of the panel, what do you see the challenges of growing your exports to the U.S.? Anyone?
Well, we have been growing. We started with a basket of products. The basket has increased. Like Mildred said, we have learned how to comply with the market. We are growing very, very fast in different products. Now, about the convenience, we are also trying to work on that. Maybe frozen food is the next good thing after fresh. And we are also very strong in canned products that are improving its quality without chemicals and nothing. No? Very, very clean production of these products are more convenient. I think that would also help the market. And we are working hard with the US. We managed to have an office of APHIS in Lima. And well, we also have here a special team in agriculture, so everything moves faster. We are doing the same thing in Europe and in China, having special teams to work harder in the access. But also Peru is improving the different presentations of the products, and that's a field we think we can increase our market share.
Well, the social stability of Costa Rica has been recognized for many, many, many American companies, and that actually, just to say that since we do not have army, we have abolished the army since 1949, and have been able to manage a stable country, probably pretty much the most stable country in the whole region. That had helped us to attract a lot of American companies to set up operations in the country, not only in the technology market, but also in the produce industry. And that is to say that most likely the market that we have in the US, a big chunk, comes from American companies established in Costa Rica. And those are mainly the big names, the Chiquita, the Dole, the Monte, all of them sending their products from Costa Rica to. We are part of the diversification or the offering basket or portfolio of products that any channel in the US have. That because of the proximity, stability, the ability to comply with standards. So for the market and for our companies, I will definitely say one of the challenges will be keep working towards having 100% all universe of our growers comply with US standards. We are doing a very good job so far. We believe that having half of our experience in the US and half of our experience doing business with the European Union, that put us aside in a really good position on selling very good quality products, but most importantly, safety products. I'm talking about global food safety and our ability to comply with certifications under that bill, that whole environment. So our work is keep working with the universe of growers towards that, and being able to differentiate that kind of within that issue. And secondly, I definitely will put attention on diversifying the channel, trying to get to different channels into the market, and of course, trying to help our other products besides the big ones that are probably shown in that slide that is not helping us. But if we see some other products in the produce industry, like the Latin American or more tropical category, I definitely will see higher growth on that end. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
We need to wrap up this, so
Okay, just in a nutshell.
yes or no?
Yes or no?
We need to, in the case of Guatemala, we need to continue doing our efforts in order to improve logistics, doing the efforts of talking to new ports, trying to talk to shipping companies in order to establish new routes and try to lower our prices in logistics. That would be a great hit for us. And also another challenge that we'll still have to see what's happening is the new policies that the new government of the U.S. is going to take. What we saw in the election is the President-elect Trump, he wants to start reviewing free trade agreements. So if he reviews NAFTA, CAFTA, it will certainly affect the way we do business. If he reviews NAFTA, it would be an opportunity for all the rest that you see at the bottom. If he reviews all of it, like, it will be opportunity. So that will shake somehow the rules of trade, but we still need to see what happens.
You want me to respond? We'll still
I
be
would love to hear
closer,
that
we'll
answer.
still be more competitive, but we
Yeah.
do have a challenge of diversifying our economy, and that is something that we're doing as of always. We have signed, after NAFTA, we signed, as I mentioned before, 11 trade agreements, 10, with 46 countries. So that's a challenge for Mexico, but we'll still be closer.
For all
We'll
of
still
us.
be, very competitive. And hopefully NAFTA will
Yeah.
continue to exist. Otherwise, avocados will be $4 a piece.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, to wrap up, so these are the challenges. On behalf of Chile, what I can say is that, and this will serve as an introduction to the next piece, why Chile hasn't grown, it's basically because we have diverted our export, or some important part of our exports, to other markets, in special China. So we used to send 4 million boxes 4 years ago of cherries. It's less than 1 million right now. Same in grapes, same in others. So it's a market that, or the strategy as a country, there's not one, but each company, it's focusing on the best return. Okay, let's go to the second part of a panel, and it's analyzing, and we're gonna be doing this second part faster than the first one. I really want to get to the last one, that is China, that I think that we have interesting information for all of one. So basically, in the last 25 years, we've seen great changes in the retail industry. If we summarize, the main retailers that they were launched or that started operations in the 20th century had an organic and local growth in the first part of the last in the 20th century. So that applies for Tesco, for Walmart, for Carrefour, Cencosud, that is from South America, and many others. They didn't grow that much until the beginning of the 90s. For some reason, and this is an example, the case of Walmart, they started in the US in 1962, and then they expanded to Mexico in 1991, and then to Canada, and all around the world, and you can see in the figures there. The same happened with Tesco, that it started in the UK and expanded to other countries in Western Europe in those days, and then into Asia, and finally even into the US. And the case of Cencosud, that many of you probably don't know, started in Chile. This was a little early in 1982. It expanded to Argentina, then to Brazil, to Peru, that they acquired one of the largest retailers in Peru, and finally Colombia. What this tells us is there's right now, after this big expansion, what we have right now is increased competition. So there's concentration of the buying power. The retailers are trying to reduce cost, there's a higher competition for prices, especially after the financial crisis of year 2008, 2009. And we're starting to see global sourcing and direct buying. Global sourcing is finding the best spot in the world from where to get a product, TVs from China, for example. And direct buying is eliminating as many intermediaries as you can in the process. And towards the consumer, being able to understand the consumer's culture, and we could have a whole presentation about this, and also to get ahead of the needs of the consumer. Basically, we used to have many regional buyers from the retail, and the retailers used to have many regional buyers, and they all started to merge into one big buyer, which is great. As an exporter, you have to talk to less people. The problem is that they're much more powerful than they used to be. And also, I'm speaking for Chile, and this is going to be my main question to the panel. From Chile, it used to be that the grower would sell to an exporter, the exporter will sell to an importer, and that importer will end up selling to the retailer. While today, what we have is the grower has transformed into a grower-exporter and selling directly to the retailer, and the importer having to open operations and start relations with growers in the different countries. So what you have right now, as a conclusion of that point, is that you have three buying powers: the importer, the exporter, and the retailer trying to get product from the same grower. My question to you: are you seeing the same scenario in the different countries in Latin America?
Well, I can take that. Definitely there are different combinations of the scenario, and everybody is trying to cut the chain and get some sort of margin. In the US, I can tell you that the experience that some of our exporters have been facing, it's pretty much the same experience. We have a chunk of companies, the American companies, with a strong power logistically. They own the logistics. They also have a really good sales team and a very good negotiating power to get into the market. We also have a chunk of locally owned or privately owned companies in the big number, in the big products like coffee, banana, pineapple, and melon as well, and mango. And those companies most likely like to negotiate based on contracts and have some sort of good idea on how the market is going to behave during the year. Therefore, they try to find some negotiation that allows them to get steady in the market through that period of time. Of course, buying groups, direct sourcing are a really good way for them to get into the market. And we have big names in our country that they just negotiate directly with those supermarket chains. Definitely, Walmart being in our region, Walmart being in here, is a good market for some of our products, mainly bananas and pineapples. Then the big groups are knocking some doors down there and trying to develop that sort of relationship combined with the effort that they do directly or the purchasing power that they already have with the big American names established in Costa Rica. That's our experience. We, in the region, in the New York metro area, definitely it's a different animal, to be honest. We have a lot of fragmentation in here. Some of the fragmented supermarkets chains that are in this region, well, they also wanted to source some products direct, and the produce industry, it's a good way for them to get access to that. And we see them knocking some doors on our houses, looking for direct sourcings as well. So that's pretty much the experience that I have seen.
Someone else from the panel would like to share?
Well, I think it's interesting because this trend for reducing the channel of distribution, going directly from the retail to the producer, farmers, or exporters, I think it's ideal for our producers and growers trying to get in contact more direct with almost the consumer. But because of the margins, because usually in the importers or the wholesale has been taking a big participation on the full price, for the final price. But I think it's very interesting. There are, I would say that is growing trend for the retailers that are taking contact with our farmers and exporters, and they have this direct sourcing. But even it would be our ideal, I think it's not coming from our side as our supplier, but it comes more from the market. So they are thinking, and especially the retailers and the supermarkets, they are willing to deal with all of the imports, logistics, and all of the customs clearance and that kind of things that before they weren't able to do it. So I think it's a good thing because they, for both parts, especially because they can take care direct from, you know, to take control for the quality and also for saying directly, sharing the experiences from the farmers, saying that they have a social responsibility and they can do this investment like we were seeing on the experience of the Mexican company that was speaking before in the morning. So it's interesting because now, like Whole Foods, they are investing in social programs for the companies directly, and I think it's kind of fair for where is this margin getting into? So it's given back to the producer.
Let's move to the third part of the panel. We're a little bit rushed on time. So, China. I have a particular fascination about China. I go 3, sometimes 4 times a year, and every time that I go there, I have the sensation that I know less about the country. True. So I start very cocky and come back very. So what I see from China, it's a country of main differences. You see Shanghai, and this is what you get, the postcard of Shanghai. But you get, you see that too. There's this constant mix of images. Nevertheless, Latin American exports to China have grown almost 300% in the last 6 years. So we're seeing Latin America is seeing an opportunity there. And if we see it in dollars, the growth is even bigger. If we see it now by tonnage, again, the biggest ones right now is Chile, and followed, I might be getting a little blind, but it's very small to see. The second one is Mexico.
Ecuador?
No, it's Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Sorry, in volume is Ecuador, followed by yellow, that is Peru. And this is a chart, again, a chart can be very deceiving, but this is the growth of avocados mainly and blueberries to Mexico, from Mexico, to China. If we see Ecuador, the growth has also been very important in the last years. If we see Peruvian exports to China have grown very importantly, mainly grapes, because this is until year 2015. And I had a different chart for cherries, that is the case of Chile. This is only until the past season. And just for you to see that we had a growth of almost 80% from one year to the next one, and we were representing almost 76% of the total exports of Chile. This year we had a slight decrease, but the exports to the country in proportion were even bigger. Right now it's 83, almost 84% of the total cherries of Chile are going to China, which scares me a whole lot. Really, I wouldn't like to be an exporter in that sense. So I would like to ask the panel, how are you seeing your exports to China, the challenges, and I don't know, any comment you would like to?
So for Mexico, it is definitely a challenge to diversify our export economy. We are geographically close to the United States. We're just your neighbor, and that's the reason why almost 80% of our exports come here. But in 2014, we signed an MOU with China, and that's why you see an increase in our exports to that country. We know that China is a growing economy, and as the economy grows, the consumer grows. And I definitely see a challenge that you might know better than anyone here is the fact that you have to have a lot of technology in order to be successful in China.
But Mexico has direct flights to China. That's a big advantage from everyone else here in Latin America.
We go back to the logistics. We're very well connected, and you can fly. Ecuador is probably at the center of the world, but Mexico is also at the center of the Americas, and we are surrounded by 2 oceans, and you can fly from everywhere to the Pacific.
Thank you. Anyone?
Well, we also signed a free trade agreement with China back in 2011. That just to say that our exports, the total exports, grown pretty much 24% every year. We start with a business of $634 million pretty much, and now it is actually around $5 billion business. Of course, with different products, not only produce. The most important one is bananas at this point, and that actually just to say that it takes a lot of time to develop access and good the rule of law within China and the negotiation. So having said that, I think it is a great market and a good opportunity for us to keep growing, to diversify our offer, but it's going to take time for us to establish that rule of law to being able to develop a business down in China with a structured transparency and a good body of rules for our exporters in order to have a beneficial business for both. So I think the big challenge will be being there, communications, and have that legal framework.
Well, I think it's interesting to see the charts you mentioned there. Ecuador is jumping very high and very quick to this market during the last 3 years. And even we don't have a free trade agreement also with this country, we are growing so fast. And I would say one of the reasons why is because we have been receiving as a country a lot of technology transfers. And there are our main investor in Ecuador is from China actually. So from different companies and also from the government. So, and also it's very interesting to see, it's a great market, obviously, because of the size of the market, the number of population, and also the capacity for buying, the consumption capacity is being growing, so they are not anymore the cheap market that used to be. So even though our logistics is kind of far, but we are competing at a very good price, even for our commodities like bananas, pineapples, and everything, we are still selling. Even we have Thailand very close to China. So again, quality, it's been the main reason for competing very well on markets.
Thank you.
In the Peruvian experience, we started our grapes exports directed to China because we were almost the one country that had grapes at the New Year's Chinese year. No? Then we developed the grapes. After that, we got to the US market, and now we are supplying both countries. But China, like you said, is a big, big monster. It will awake anytime now. It's awakening. What they can consume is nothing that we can imagine right now. For me, population is a key variable to understand markets. And if you compare the US, and I think the US has a big potential still to grow in the produce consumption, but if you put that numbers into China, the potential consumption of China is huge, and India will follow, and these countries are more used than normal Americans to eat vegetables and eat different things, right? So I think this will be an explosion, something different, and like we said, in the case of Peru, the companies have been learning, the people has been educated, now we are completely in another level of productivity and of capacities to supply any market. And these companies that were companies of $2 million, $5 million, are now companies of $100 billion. They can invest, they have other muscle now. And we are ready for any opportunity.
Thank you. Diego, you wanted to say something?
Yes, it's just Guatemala. It's a very singular case in talking about China. We are one of the 14 countries in the world that have diplomatic relations with Taiwan and accepts Taiwan as a country and not China. So we don't have diplomatic relations with China. So it's a little bit harder to do business. Having said that, we do have a bicameral, bilateral chamber, and we do have some trade. It is a learning curve. Just a month ago, we had a mission that I brought from here, and maybe it wasn't produce exactly, but it was beef, what they wanted to. And there's some obstacles, like they only permit 8 countries in the world to export beef to China. So if we want to do it, we have to bring the equivalent of FDA in order and have a process of 1-2 years in order to certify the plant that they will be. So I'm guessing the same thing will happen in vegetables. We do sell grains, coffee, but vegetables we still are behind.
Thank you, Diego. And from my perspective, from a Chilean perspective, China is, I agree with Conrado that the volume of the size of the market due to the population is one of the main variables, but at the same time, being there, the quality of the fruit that they eat locally, unlike what we think, is of a very high quality. So what they demand from the other countries is the same. So that's added to the logistics and the challenges to get 30 or 40 days away from the market is going to limit the amount of fruit that our products that can be sent from Latin America as well. So there's going to be, I think, plenty of fruit to go to China, to the US, and also to Europe. With this, we would like to wrap up and to close this panel. I hope you liked it. Questions, since we're running out of time, I invite you to do it at the coffee in a few minutes, and please, round of applause for all the participants.